Hi there. Good morning. My name is Mariam Dasha. I'm currently in my last 2 weeks of internship, and I'm here to share my experience and take you through the projects I've done in these last 6 months. Let's start with how I got hired into Alaaf construction. Well, I believe it was the beginning of October when I started looking for work in Selangor, since I was living there back then pursuing my degree online. However, by December, I was unable to get any reply back from most of the companies, and anyone that did get back to me rejected me either because they were not hiring interns during this recession or because I was simply not the right fit for the company. It was understandable since it was an economically hard time for all firms. By January, I was starting to apply to Maldivian firms as well. I finally got accepting emails from two companies. One was Epoch and the other one was Alaaf. Epoch basically really wanted to get me on their team. However, I had to decline since they did not have an interior design senior, supervisor, or even an interior architect who could look over my work. And I went with the only other option I had, which was Alaaf. It was a construction company, and after giving it some thought, I felt that it was beneficial for me to work somewhere that was a bit out of my degree, since there is no harm in gaining new knowledge. I still was living in Malaysia, and my supervisor, Mohammed Shaman, was overseas, and we had a huge time difference. So we mostly communicated via email and Viber, and we had a mutual interview there where he asked about my work and I got all my doubts cleared. He also sent me his resume and company profile, and they both looked pretty promising. The company had a lot of ongoing resort projects and commercial buildings, which I was very excited to be a part of. So I decided to go ahead with Alaaf. Now, of course, this meant that I would have to move back to Maldives, and frankly, I didn't mind it that much because our tourism industry is growing pretty fast and our vernacular architecture is quite impressive, and we have a great scope of work. Being an architect professor, the first thing Mr. Sharman tasked me with was to study the Maldivian building code and regulations. There were quite a lot of differences between the regulations Malaysia followed with that of Maldives, since we are a smaller country and we have to consider that we're pretty much almost at sea level when it comes to land altitude. So there are strict guidelines on how tall we can make a building. How a floor is ventilated is dramatically different to buildings in Malaysia. Bylaws can change depending on the purpose of a building, such as from a shop to a warehouse. Anyways, all of this was important to know firsthand, since I'm here in a country that I have never built anything for. And I needed to know all of this in order to present practical, quality, and most importantly, technically correct drawings for the client. Finally, my supervisor emailed me a plot with dimensions and briefed me on my first project, Javier Yofa. This building was located in Mafano, which is the most west district in Malé. I was asked to build a 10-story household, including a terrace and a shop. Each floor was supposed to have 2 apartments with 3 bedrooms and attached baths. The total land area was around 2,000 square feet. Initially, I divided the ground floor to the home entrance, and then the shop continued on. The space was going to be quite compact, and on top of that, I had to look into installing the correct elevator. I was having a hard time fitting everything to the brief. I guess it is important to let you know that in Maldives, when you're building, every part of the building should have an opening that faces an area of not less than 10% of the total ground area on that floor. And each of these vent shafts are supposed to be minimum 600 to 750 mm in their size. And this was gonna be eating up a lot of space. I was used to building on way larger areas. It was challenging, and after the first week of working around the technical drawings, I thought to myself, why not put in connecting bathrooms and offer mechanical ventilation? So I had a virtual meeting with my boss and I got all my doubts cleared up. He also added on to the brief that the client wanted a separate utility room and parking space on the ground floor. It was inconvenient to my schematics and design process, but I acquired the skill of maximizing usage of space and storage solutions. Admittedly, though, in Maldives, I had to give up on comfort a bit more than I would have liked. In the end, what you see here are the end results of the drafting phase. I also included 3 versions for space division on each floor so that the client would have more options. My supervisor was the front for all of the client meetings, and he included some of my ideas into the official drawings that were presented, and it was approved by both of them. I was also assigned my second project right off the bat, and that was the MU Store warehouse building. MU Store was a warehouse/laborer accommodation building. It was 2 adjacent plots merged together by breaking down the dividing wall. I designed parking for both ground and basement parking versions. I spent quite a lot of time calculating the entrance height, the slope angle, and the rotation of vehicles on the parking and docking floors because they need to allow smooth loading and unloading so as to not disrupt the warehouse work. For this, I had to research loading and unloading bays, docking bays, and how these operations run in Mali City. There's the inclusion of a delivery office and a warehouse. Above this was cold storage and labor accommodations. This project was very dear to me because I've always felt like we don't appreciate foreign laborers in Maldives enough. One of the saddest things that I actually have seen is their standard of living, which is sometimes just a fishing net cast over bare columns and a wooden table with a thin mattress for a bed. I wanted my design to offer them a good living space with adequate ventilation and comfort. I decided to remove all interior walls for the accommodation floors and have barrack-styled bedrooms for them. It opens up the space and lets the air move freely around the room. I also included many ventilation shafts and windows so it allows natural light. Lighting and ventilation was so important to achieve harmony of space, increasing comfort, which is exactly what these workers would need at the end of a hard day. This is followed by office space and terrace. After submission of this project at the end of April, it's sad to say that I still have not been assigned any work to this day. And I did my part in requesting for work from my supervisor, one time even asking to give me old projects just so he can see my ideas on it. I believe that it was harder during this time since the whole country went on a full lockdown where only essential businesses were open. Everyone was forced to stay at home, and honestly, all construction work came to a halt. Thankfully, this gave me time to recover from COVID since I was sick myself. However, I did not let the fact that Alaaf stopped giving me work keep me from practicing. So I volunteered to consult for the refurbishing of finance department at the Ministry of Health, Maldives. I was the only interior designer for this project, and I worked under Mr. Ismail, who was the architect. I'm proud to say that I did extensive work, including site visits, interviewing employees, drafting the whole concept, custom designing furniture, choosing furniture from overseas, liaising with furniture dealers, and even preparing the full BOQ for the project by myself. This project ran for a course of 3 months, and I received a letter of appreciation from the ministry at the end. Even though it's outside my internship, this project is the highlight of my 6 months, and I'm glad to have opted for this on my own. Now, to not have had enough projects in my internship saddens me, and I feel terribly about it. But I'm just glad that I did my part and finished the assigned task to the best of my ability and on time. At the end of the internship, one very important thing I learned was that an interior architect has to be flexible. Clients are going to throw new things at you, and like it or not, you have to roll with it. I also learned how to communicate better with my superiors and accept feedback. One must be willing to take in the good with the bad, and I'm sure we all know that in this industry, the criticism is far more than the praise. I would like to take a minute to mention my supervisor, Mr. Shamin, for being a great teacher and easing my first step into the construction field. I would also like to tip my hat to Ms. Diana and Ms. Norji for their unending guidance and support, without which juggling so many things at once would have been near impossible. And lastly, my friends for supporting me from start to finish. Well, that's it for my experience in my internship. You can look into my blog and find further details. Hope you enjoyed this small walkthrough. Have a great day. Thank you.